Good morning. This is Emerson with ATAGO. Hope you guys can hear me. I'll give you a couple of seconds. I think there's a lag. Okay. Sorry, I'm having some difficulties here. So today we'll be covering very quickly what's the difference between the VISCO and the VISCO BL. Sorry, give me a second. Okay, so today we'll be covering what's the differences between the VISCO and VISCO BL. Both are ATAGO's viscometer, rotational viscometer. As you can see from the picture, the main body of either VISCOs is the same physically on the outside, cosmetically I should say. It's the same. Even though one looks bigger than the other, the body itself is the same. But we're gonna go beyond that today. We'll cover the main differences and a little bit more about what the concept of viscosity is, at least in how it applies to these two models and maybe a brand that you've been using before. Okay, so what are the differences? That's what we're here to talk about. Oh, by the way, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. We can talk about your questions as soon as you ask. We don't have to wait until the end. So what's the difference? We have the VISCO and the VISCO BL. The most obvious difference is the form factor, where the VISCO, as you can see here, is small in size. Okay, it's portable. It's meant to be portable. And the VISCO BL is more of a benchtop type. The VISCO, you can use it, well, both. I guess you can use it in batteries, but the VISCO, you can easily take it with you. And the VISCO BL, not as easy. You need to set it up or tear it down if you want to take it with you, but it is possible. The other difference is, and I think this is one of the most important differences, is the volume of the sample that you'll be using. With the VISCO, you'll be using either 15 milliliters or 100 milliliters. If you want to know more about when you're using one or the other, you should see one of our other VISCO videos or email us. Someone will type in the email right now. You can email us about that. The VISCO BL uses by default 500 milliliters. Now, if you're used to measuring VISCO, then I think that the 500 milliliter sounds normal for you. That sounds familiar to you, because most rotational viscometers use 500 milliliters. ATAGO is one of the few that uses small volumes, and it would use that under the VISCO. The other difference is the spindle. We have spindles to the right and left. Both are known in the industry of viscometers. This cone type viscometer is, spindle is what's used for the VISCO. These three here, and this one to the far left is for low viscosity samples only. So the three that come with the VISCO are these, A1, A2, A3. You can buy separately the low viscosity adapter that includes the low viscosity spindle. On the right we have the VISCO BL, which uses these type of spindles. L2, L3, L4 are for the, well, let me start. L1 is for low viscosity, just like this one is over here. And L2, L3, L4 are the similar ones to the A1, A2, A3. So in all cases, you would use the smaller spindle for higher viscosity. So if you have a higher viscosity, you go to L4. If you have a higher viscosity with a VISCO, you'll go to A3. So these are the three main differences. Then we're going to talk a bit about which is the best model for you. If you have any questions about this, please you can ask about it now, and then we're going to talk about it. But in the meantime, which is the best instrument for you? I think some of it might be obvious if you're in the market for a viscometer or if your customer is in the market for a viscometer. Do they need or do you need something portable? There are different situations where you need something portable. Maybe you are in moving lab. Maybe you are a quality control manager or a quality control person that needs to go from site to site to measure viscosity of a product because they don't have an instrument there, or you just need to take your own and do the quality control for yourself, so you need to take it with you. So if you need something portable, VISCO is the instrument for you. It's very quick to set up, very easy to use, and just clean it up, take it and go. If you are a full-time lab, you're used to maybe other benchtop viscometers that are in the market, then maybe the VISCO BL is the best model for you. If your sample is very expensive, we have a few customers that sample is very, very expensive, and they're looking for a low volume option for measuring viscosity. They cannot afford 500 milliliter of their sample, then the VISCO is the model for you. If your sample, let's say it's ketchup, it's tomato sauce, it's different syrups where the product is not as expensive per volume, then the VISCO BL could work for you because you would use your normal 500 milliliters. If you're measuring something out of a can, for example, we have customers that are measuring syrups or tomato sauce out of a can. So they're making the can, the product, and then for quality control, they would just open up the can. And the can is like those bigger cans, then you can go with the VISCO BL. Spindle, we're going to talk a bit more about the spindle because there's a whole explanation about spindles, but yeah, we're going to talk about that a bit later. Any questions so far? Okay. So I'm talking about, let's say measuring viscosity is new for you, or I want to know if you've been measuring viscosity or if it's new for you, or maybe if you're a distributor, then you should find out if this viscosity is new to your customer. So if it's new to you, if measuring viscosity is a new parameter, maybe you've been measuring pH, you've been measuring Brix, you've been measuring acidity, color, different things, but viscosity is a new parameter that you're going to be measuring, then either model will work for you. Yes, I think there's a question. Mm-hmm.
So, L in the name of VISCO B, L comes from low viscosity range. If so, do you have also spindles for medium or high viscosity ranges? For manual.
Manuel, okay. Good question. No, and yes. So the instrument, let's go back to this image. So Manuela's question is if the L in VISCO BL stands for low viscosity. It does not. It doesn't have to do with low viscosity. So the range of the VISCO BL and the VISCO have full ranges of viscosity. For lower viscosity, you would use bigger spindles. So in the example of a VISCO BL, you would be using the L1 spindle for low viscosity or ultra low viscosity. For low viscosity. For VISCO, you would use this spindle here, the ULA spindle, the ultra low viscosity adapter spindle. As your viscosity, or if your sample's viscosity is higher, then you would move from left to also right in this case, in both cases. So for highest viscosity, so if you have something that's really high viscosity, then for the VISCO you would be using A3, and for the VISCO BL you would be using L4. So the instruments are full range viscometers. The difference is different spindles would be used for different viscosity ranges. But as a whole, the set will cover the full range of the instrument. There are many spindles in the market. There are these, some people call them L-type spindles, but it's not for low viscosity. These, some people call them cone types. They're P-types, they're other types. There are many different types of spindles. There are some specialty spindles, some for powder, some for there's a whole bunch of spindles. These are the most common in the market, and these are what you'd find more common in the market.
I compare it with Brookfield viscometers.
Correct. So that's kind of where we're going next. Give me a couple of seconds to answer that, Manuela. Is it Manuela? Okay. Give me a couple of seconds to answer that. So, if you're a distributor, then you want to find out if your customer has been using viscometers before. And if you're a customer, then I want to know if you've been using viscometers before. Because if measuring viscosity is new to you, then either models would work. The VISCO would work, and the VISCO BL would work. Because at the end of the day, when you're trying to measure viscosity, you're just looking for consistency. So all you want is for your product to be the same. Okay? So either one would work if you're new to viscosity, or if your customer is new to measuring viscosity. If your customer is not new to viscosity, if they've been measuring viscosity for a while now, okay, that's no here, then I'll ask what were you or what were they using before? Which model looks more familiar? More than likely, I think they'll say VISCO BL. And what type of spindles were they using before? More than likely, I mean, those spindles, they could go either one, because, yeah, there are more cone spindles out there, but Brookfield does use this type as well of spindles. So when it comes to Manuela's comments about Brookfield or other viscometers that use this type of spindle, then if that's where you're coming from as a customer, or that's where your customer is coming from using these types of spindles, then I'd go with the VISCO BL. Okay, so just to summarize, if you or your customer is new to measuring viscosity, either model will work, VISCO BL or VISCO. If they've been measuring viscosity before, if it's a bench top, and if the spindles that they've been using is similar to these, then your answer would be VISCO BL. Because more than likely, if they've been using spindles like these, then they've been using volumes like these, and it's a bench top. So VISCO BL would be the most comparable unit to what they're used to. And this is when you as a customer or your customer would have to think, because your companies would have guidelines. This product has this viscosity at this spindle at this RPM. So there's a whole settings that you would use for viscosity. So a product would be 20,000, viscosity of 20,000 when using spindle L2 at RPM 100. So that combination of the volume of 500 milliliters, RPM of 100, and L2 gives you a certain viscosity. And we're going to talk about that a bit more later. But that's why I said if they're used to using this type of spindle, then I would offer you, if you're a customer, or if you're a distributor, you should offer the VISCO BL. Because some companies don't want to change the documentation, the procedures that they already have. If their product, if they're used to their product having a certain viscosity, and you say, well, they're going to change to a different type of spindle, the value is going to change. They don't like to see that change. Or they're open-minded and they understand, yeah, we don't mind changing the value as long as it's consistent, then they can change. But I'd stick with looking at what they've been using before and choose what's similar to what they've been using before. If they're new, then either model would work. Any questions? No. All right. So I spoke about just now about spindles and volumes. I spoke about these spindles with these volumes, and I wanted to clarify some of that. What to expect when changing spindle types and volumes. Okay, and the reason I'm mentioning this is because we have a few customers that were using other brand viscometers and are changing to ATAGO, maybe because they have ATAGO refractometers, they have ATAGO polarimeters, they have ATAGO acid meters. So they know our brand, they know our instruments, they know our quality, and you know, they want to continue using ATAGO. Some are, well, not too happy with whatever brand they're using. So there are some people that want to change from the viscometer that they're using. Some people want to change because of those reasons that I mentioned. Some people want to change because they want to start using less volume. So those changes, when you're going to change a spindle type and a sample volume, you can expect different viscosity readings. Okay? So let's say before, there is a relationship between the spindle and the sample volume. So let's say before they were using this type of spindle, the L type, this type here. Okay? And of course they were using 500 milliliters. So this is what they're used to from a different brand. If they want to buy ATAGO, or if you want to buy ATAGO, like if you're the customer, then you can switch to the VISCO BL, the VISCO BL, because the VISCO BL will give you more or less the same everything. You're going to use the same volume, you're going to use similar spindles, you're going to use similar RPMs, and you're going to get similar results to what you're used to. But if you're going to change for some reason, for example, I have a customer in Netherlands right now that they want to change from a different brand that was using this to this. So they don't. I presented the VISCO BL, and they are not interested in VISCO BL because it's the same as what they have from a different brand, and they want to start using a lot less sample. Okay. So when you're going to change from this, whether it be from a different brand or from VISCO BL to this style, it's a different spindle, it's a different volume, you can expect the value of viscosity to be different. Okay? Because there's a relationship, there shouldn't be a question here. There's a relationship between spindle and volume. If you're going to change the volume, your value is going to change. If you're going to change the spindle, your value is going to change. When it comes to refractometers, analogs or digital, usually, almost 100% of the time, it doesn't matter how much sample you put on the PAL, how much sample you put on the volume, your reading is the same. You put 3 drops, you put a half spoonful, the bricks reading is the same. Okay. When it comes to viscosity, no. If your volume changes, the reading will be different, even though it's the same sample, the same standard. If the spindle type changes, your reading will be the same, will be different. So please expect, if you're going to change spindle types or you're going to change volume, sample volume, expect a change in viscosity. It doesn't mean it's reading wrong. It's just that because you change the volume, the resistance that this volume is having on this spindle's shape and size, and that's having on the motor of the instrument, that's a relationship. If you change the volume, then that volume of sample with this type of spindle has a different relationship, different resistance, and then a different relationship. And the same thing goes with this. If you're using this same type of spindle on a 100 milliliter, but you're going to change it on a 500, this little volume is going to have a different resistance on this spindle and have a different reading in viscosity. So different shapes, different volumes, different results. But at the end of the day, you're looking for consistency. And that's what you need to do. If you're going to change from this to this, expect a different number. But once you have that number, you can continue using it. And the instrument, I mean, your point is for consistency. You want your product to always have the same viscosity. And then you always just follow the new number that you got. And the same thing, if you're going to go from this to this, for example, same thing, the value is going to change. But once you have that set value, you're just looking for consistency. And as long as you get that new number, that's what you need. Any questions? Okay, so just to summarize, because I know I got into some heavy technical things right now. Just to summarize, VISCO can work as a benchtop and as a portable. But it's easier as a portable because it's smaller to handle. It can take it around, the case is smaller, the setup time is a lot quicker. VISCO BL is more of a benchtop. It's a benchtop, but it comes in a beautiful case and you can take it around, but you need some more setup time for it. The difference in volume, 50 milliliters or 100 milliliters versus 500. The spindles are different. Basically, that's your major differences. Any questions? I'm gonna wait a couple of seconds in case you guys have questions. If you have any other, if you have questions, there's an email in the chat in the future. If you're a distributor, then you can contact your main rep. And if you need a demo unit, please let us know, and we'll help you out with that. Okay, no more questions then. Thank you for attending, and I hope you guys have a great rest of the day.